Hello and welcome to the channel. Thank you for taking a moment to be here with us. Today we're bringing you a new documentary that we've prepared with great care and passion. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We'd also love to know where you're watching from. Feel free to share it in the comments. The mystery hidden in the heart of the Bible is an object so mysterious, so powerful, that it has inspired thousands of years of fascination, fear, and faith. The Ark of the Covenant is not merely a sacred relic. It is a symbol of divine presence, an instrument of power, and a theological cornerstone that links heaven and earth. From the moment it was first described in the book of Exodus, the Ark captured the imagination of believers. Crafted from acacia wood and overlaid with pure gold, it was said to contain the tablets of the 10 Commandments, given directly by God to Moses. But beyond its sacred contents, it was believed to hold the very presence of God, so holy that touching it could bring death. Throughout history, the Ark has appeared at crucial moments in Israel's journey. It led them across the Jordan River, brought down the walls of Jericho, and accompanied them into battle as a divine weapon. For centuries, it was housed in the tabernacle and eventually in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. Then, without warning, it vanished. Its disappearance gave rise to countless legends. Some say it was taken to Babylon. Others claim it lies hidden in Ethiopia or buried beneath the Temple Mount. Yet despite all the speculation, its exact location remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in religious history. This documentary explores the complete story of the Ark of the Covenant, from its divine origins to its role in Israel's faith, from historical debates to theological interpretations. We follow the thread of an object that continues to inspire awe and curiosity. Whether it is fact, myth, or something in between, the Ark challenges us to seek the sacred, to question the past, and to consider the possibility that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but to be revered. Origins and instructions. The story of the Ark of the Covenant begins in the wilderness at the foot of Mount Sinai. After leading the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses ascended the mountain to receive the law from God. But he was not only given commandments, he was given a vision. In that vision, God instructed Moses to build a sanctuary, a place where the divine presence could dwell among the people. At the heart of this sanctuary would be the Ark. According to the book of Exodus, God gave precise instructions for the Ark's construction. It was to be made of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. The entire Ark would be overlaid with pure gold both inside and out. It would rest on 4 golden rings, through which poles of acacia wood, also covered in gold, would be inserted, so that the Ark could be carried without being touched directly. The lid of the Ark, called the mercy seat, was to be made of solid gold. On it, 2 cherubim, angelic beings, would be fashioned, facing each other with their wings spread upward, overshadowing the mercy seat. Between these golden figures, God declared he would meet with Moses and speak to him. Inside the Ark were placed the stone tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments, symbolizing the covenant between God and his people. Later traditions would also associate the Ark with other sacred items, such as Aaron's rod that budded and a jar of manna, though these additions are not universally accepted across all biblical texts. The Ark was not a mere container. It was the visible sign of the invisible God, the throne of the Almighty among the Israelites. Wherever the Ark went, the people followed. It was the central object of worship, reverence, and divine guidance. Its construction signified more than obedience, it marked a relationship. The Ark represented a covenant, a binding agreement of love, law, and loyalty between God and his people. And with that covenant came both blessing and responsibility. To treat the Ark lightly was to risk divine judgment. To honor it was to walk in the presence of the Most High. From this moment on, the Ark would become not just a symbol, but a living part of Israel's journey, a sacred vessel that carried both law and mystery across the wilderness of history. The power of the Ark. The Ark of the Covenant was more than a sacred object. It was an active force in the life of ancient Israel. From the moment it was completed, the Ark demonstrated a mysterious and overwhelming power. It did not simply sit in the tabernacle, it moved, it led, and at times it struck with divine force. One of the most striking episodes involving the ark occurred when the Israelites prepared to cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land. As the priests carrying the ark stepped into the river, the waters stopped flowing. The riverbed dried up, allowing the people to pass through on dry ground. This miracle echoed the parting of the Red Sea, reinforcing that the God who brought them out of Egypt was still with them, now manifest through the ark. Later in the conquest of Jericho, the ark took center stage once again. For 6 days, the Israelites marched around the city in silence, led by priests carrying the ark. On the 7th day, after completing 7 circuits, they blew their trumpets and shouted. The mighty walls of Jericho crumbled to the ground. It was not by military strength, but by divine presence that the city fell. But the ark's power was not only for Israel's benefit, it also demanded reverence and obedience. When the ark was improperly handled or treated without respect, the consequences were immediate and severe. In one infamous incident, the ark was captured by the Philistines during a disastrous battle. They brought it into the temple of their god Dagon, placing it beside his idol. But the next morning, Dagon was found face down before the ark. The day after, the idol lay broken in pieces. Soon, plagues afflicted the Philistine cities where the ark was kept, forcing them to return it to Israel. Another sobering account involves a man named Uzzah. When the ark was being transported, he reached out to steady it as it began to tip. Though his intention may have been pure, touching the ark was forbidden. Instantly, he was struck dead. The people were reminded that the ark was holy, set apart. Even acts of protection were not permitted if they crossed the boundaries of divine instruction. The ark became a visible sign of God's power, both protective and destructive. In battle, its presence could inspire courage or terror. When honored, it brought victory. When treated casually or used presumptuously, it brought disaster. These stories are not just ancient tales. They reflect a deeper truth, that the presence of the divine is never neutral. It must be approached with awe, humility, and obedience. The ark was not a talisman to be used at will. It was the throne of the living God, and its power reminded Israel and its enemies that God was not to be manipulated, only worshipped. The tabernacle and the ark. In the heart of Israel's wilderness journey stood the tabernacle, a sacred tent, meticulously designed according to divine instructions. It was not merely a place of worship, it was the earthly dwelling of the Almighty. At its very center, behind a thick veil, within the innermost chamber called the Holy of Holies, rested the Ark of the Covenant. The tabernacle was a portable sanctuary, built so that God could dwell among his people as they traveled from Egypt to the Promised Land. Every element of its structure, the altar, the lamps, the incense, the veil, served a specific symbolic and spiritual purpose. But no part was more important than the Ark, which represented the very presence of God on earth. Only one man, the high priest, was permitted to enter the Holy of Holies, and only once a year, on the Day of Atonement. Even he could not approach the ark casually. He had to be ritually purified, offering sacrifices and incense, lest he die in the presence of God. This annual event underscored the separation between a holy God and sinful humanity, and the need for atonement and intercession. The ark was not merely furniture within the tabernacle, it was the throne of God, often referred to as the mercy seat, where God's glory would appear in a cloud. From this place, God would speak to Moses and guide the nation. It was the point where heaven touched earth, where divine will intersected with human destiny. For the Israelites, the ark and the tabernacle were inseparable. Wherever the ark went, the tabernacle followed. When the ark moved, the people moved. When it rested, the camp settled around it. The ark was not only a symbol of God's authority, it was a daily reminder of his closeness, his holiness, and his guidance. The relationship between the ark and the tabernacle reveals a profound theological truth. God was not distant. He chose to dwell among his people, not in stone temples or high mountains, but in a humble tent in the midst of their journey. His presence was not limited by grandeur, but by obedience and reverence. This divine dwelling in the wilderness foreshadowed future revelations of God's desire to be near to humanity. It was a glimpse of a greater reality to come, a holy presence that would one day dwell not just in tents or temples, but in the hearts of his people. From Sinai to Solomon, the Ark of the Covenant began its journey in the wilderness, at the foot of Mount Sinai. From there it travelled with the Israelites for decades, leading them through deserts, battles, and trials. But its destination was never meant to be a tent in the sands. From the beginning, the Ark was destined for a permanent home, a sacred space in the heart of a promised kingdom. After the conquest of Canaan, the Ark found temporary resting places. For a time, it resided in Shiloh, where it remained during the period of the Judges. It was brought out in times of war and returned in times of peace, yet its status remained somewhat unstable. The Ark was revered, but not yet enthroned. When David became king of Israel, he sought to restore the Ark to a place of central importance. Having established Jerusalem as the political and spiritual capital, David desired to bring the Ark into the city. His intentions were noble, but his first attempt failed. The Ark was transported without proper reverence, and when a man named Uzzah touched it, he was struck dead. David, overcome with fear, left the Ark temporarily in the house of Obed-Edom, where it brought blessing to all who dwelled there. Months later, David tried again, this time with careful preparation, worship, and humility. As the Ark entered Jerusalem, the city erupted in celebration. David danced before it, clothed not as a king, but as a servant. The Ark was placed in a tent David had prepared, and once again it became the center of Israel's worship. But David's vision went further. He wanted to build a permanent house for God, a temple worthy of his name. However, God did not permit David to construct it, as he had been a man of war. Instead, that task was entrusted to his son Solomon. When Solomon ascended to the throne, he carried out his father's dream. He built a magnificent temple in Jerusalem, adorned with gold, cedar, and fine craftsmanship. At its heart stood the Holy of Holies, a chamber more glorious than any before it. And into that chamber the Ark was carried. The dedication of Solomon's temple was one of the most solemn and majestic moments in Israel's history. As the Ark was set in place, a cloud filled the temple, and the glory of the Lord descended. The presence of God had come to dwell in the house built for his name. The long journey from Mount Sinai to Mount Zion was complete. For centuries the Ark remained in the temple, a silent yet powerful witness to Israel's covenant with God. It was the heart of worship, the throne of mercy, and the symbol of divine rule. Its journey reflected the journey of a nation, from wandering to worship, from tents to temples, from chaos to consecration. But this time of glory would not last forever. Though the Ark had found a home, darker days were coming. Days when the temple would be threatened, the city besieged, and the sacred object once so central, lost to history. What happened to the Ark? The Ark of the Covenant, once the most sacred object in all of Israel, eventually disappeared from history, quietly, mysteriously, and without explanation. No biblical account records its destruction. No prophet declares its location. One day it was there, at the heart of Israel's worship, and the next, it was gone. The last time the Ark is mentioned with certainty in the Bible is during the reign of King Josiah, roughly 600 years before Christ. Josiah orders the priests to return the Ark to the temple in Jerusalem, suggesting that it may have been removed or hidden during a period of religious decline. But after that, silence. The most common theory is that the Ark was lost during the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 5586 BCE. The Babylonians, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, invaded the city, destroyed the temple, and carried off its treasures. Yet when the list of plundered items is recorded in detail in the books of Kings and Chronicles, the Ark is conspicuously absent. Was it destroyed, hidden, stolen before the invasion? No one knows. Jewish tradition offers a variety of explanations. One suggests that the priests, foreseeing the invasion, hid the Ark in a secret chamber beneath the Temple Mount. Others believe it was taken out of Jerusalem entirely, perhaps to Egypt or even as far as Ethiopia. The ancient Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintains to this day that the Ark resides in a guarded chapel in the town of Axum. Though no outsider is allowed to see it, the claim has endured for centuries. Other accounts, such as those found in apocryphal texts like 2 Maccabees, tell of the prophet Jeremiah hiding the Ark in a cave on Mount Nebo, sealing it until the time when God would gather his people again. These stories are rich in symbolism, but they remain unverifiable. Modern archaeologists and historians have searched for clues, beneath the Temple Mount, in desert caves, among ruins across the Middle East. Yet no definitive evidence has ever surfaced. The Ark's fate remains one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of all time. But perhaps its disappearance was more than a historical accident. Some theologians believe that the Ark vanished not by chance, but by divine design. With the destruction of the temple and the exile of the people, the Ark's absence marked a turning point in Israel's spiritual journey, a move from reliance on sacred objects to a deeper internal faith. The prophets rarely mention the Ark after its disappearance. Jeremiah even declares that a day will come when the Ark will no longer be remembered or missed, because God's presence will dwell directly among his people. And so the Ark, once the very throne of God, faded into mystery. Its loss echoes across history, not as a failure, but as an invitation. An invitation to seek not just the object, but the presence it represented. For perhaps the true Ark was never meant to be found in golden wood, but in the hearts of those who still long for the voice of the divine. Symbolism. Beyond its gold-covered exterior and mysterious history, the Ark of the Covenant holds a profound spiritual significance. To see the Ark merely as a religious artifact is to miss its true power. It was never just a container or a relic, it was a symbol of something greater, something eternal. At its core, the Ark represented the presence of God among his people. It was the visible sign of an invisible reality. In the wilderness, it led the Israelites like a shepherd leads his flock. In the tabernacle and later the temple, it became the meeting place between heaven and earth. The Ark was the heart of the covenant, a promise of relationship, of guidance, of holiness. The very materials used in the Ark's construction were symbolic. Acacia wood, known for its durability and resistance to decay, pointed to purity and endurance. Gold, a metal of kings and gods, reflected divine glory. The combination of human-crafted wood and divine gold mirrored the intersection of humanity and divinity, earth touching heaven. The contents of the Ark added another layer of meaning. The stone tablets represented God's law, the foundation of the covenant. The jar of manna spoke of God's provision, the daily bread given from heaven. Aaron's staff, which once budded with life, symbolized God's chosen leadership and miraculous power. Together these objects told a story of law, grace and authority, all housed in the presence of God. The mercy seat atop the Ark, overshadowed by cherubim, was not just a cover, it was a throne. Here, blood was sprinkled on the Day of Atonement to reconcile the people with their Creator. It was a place of judgment, transformed into a place of mercy. The name itself, Mercy Seat, declared that the Holy One was also the Forgiving One. In Christian theology, the Ark takes on even deeper meaning. Many see it as a foreshadowing of Christ himself. Like the Ark, Jesus was both human and divine. Like the Ark, he carried the presence of God. And just as the high priest once entered the Holy of Holies with blood, so Christ, according to the New Testament, entered the heavenly sanctuary with his own blood, offering eternal atonement. Some traditions even view Mary, the mother of Jesus, as a new Ark, she who bore the word of God in her womb, just as the original Ark carried the law. In this light, the Ark becomes not only a symbol of past glory, but of future fulfillment. The Ark also invites personal reflection. It asks, where does God dwell now? If the physical Ark is lost, can his presence still be found? The answer offered by prophets and apostles alike is yes. God now writes his law not on tablets of stone, but on the human heart. His sanctuary is not built of gold, but of flesh and spirit. The Ark's deeper meaning transcends time and place. It speaks to a longing in every human soul, the desire to encounter the divine, to be guided, forgiven, and transformed. It is not only a relic of history, it is a symbol of hope.